something happened and I had to step in. And the way I stepped in, I'm like, after I thought about like, you know what, I probably could have handled that a little differently.
Your son is looking at how you react right there in that moment. And that's going to affect him. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. I think we should just get straight into it.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead and frame it out?
Yeah, so we were having a conversation offline, and we were just kind of catching up, just seeing how everyone's week was going.
Plus, we was eating.
We was eating, you know, how
Over a good meal.
eating, you get to talking, and, you know. So I was just giving an example of some of the things that I've been marinating on, and it was a situation where, you know, all of us, we're proponents of just continuous improvement, continuous learning. And I was telling them an example I had with my oldest son where we had something happened and I had to step in, you know, and the way I stepped in, I'm like, after I thought about like, you know what, I probably could have handled that a little differently, right? Mm-hmm. And based on the interaction, I kind of had some wise counsel given to me from another man. And I was just telling the brothers how I had to humble myself in the moment because my initial reaction was to get a little bit defensive. Like, you know, this is what happened. This is my son, you know, it is what it is. But the brother actually was coming to me in love and just, you know, telling me from his experience, like, you know, I've made some mistakes and I've done some things with my older kids that I wish I could get back. And you have an incident of your son is young enough to where we can shape. And we just started having a really good conversation about, you know, wise counsel, teachable moments, just where we have to humble ourselves in these moments and understand that there's lessons coming to us all throughout the day in many shapes and forms. And sometimes you can't get distracted with the messenger. You have to really just be quiet a little bit, just listen and just marinate.
One thing that you said is like, there was a situation that it could have easily gone a different way. It could have easily gone a different way if you just, you know, toughed up. Nah, you ain't about to do X, Y, and Z. I ain't about to listen to none of that. I'm the man around here, X, Y, and Z. And how many dudes do we know who would just take that? Like they would go the pride route when they get corrected, when they get checked, when someone says, actually, you know what? I don't think you did the right thing in this moment. And then they'd be completely shut off. Wouldn't listen to nobody after that. And like, I mean, seriously, like it's those moments right there where you can have like the biggest growth in your life, but also in the people who you were around, like the people who look up to you, because it's not just a moment for, you know, you, it's a moment for someone to see, someone that was already paying attention to what you're doing, whether they let you know or not. Your son is looking at how you react right there in that moment, and that's going to affect him.
No, that's real. I mean, I think that the teachable moment piece is in so many elements. Like you said, it's the in this case, you, Mike, or whoever the person is, a parent in that situation. It's the son, the impact on the son. It's the fact that this other individual who the Spirit led to kind of give you some wisdom. I mean, it's so much in that because for one, another man coming up to a man having that conversation with them is a big deal. So we're gonna give kudos to the brother who talked to you too, and the fact that like Martell said, let's just be real. That percentage is real low. Who gonna approach it and even think about it the way you did? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And not saying you perfect, not like that. You said, hey, look, you know, for your first instinct, but then that control came in, or the Spirit came in, and kind of like, I need to listen to this. Then you start to realize. You analyze. You're like, wait a minute. This, you know, that teachable moment piece come in when you accept the fact that you could do something different, or possibly could do something different, versus you right. You know,
and that's really what it came down to, because you know we started by talking about the actual situation, but the conversation really just went so much further. And by some of the topics that were coming out, I could just tell it was so spiritually led. Because, you know, one of the big things that we were talking about was just like our patience, you know, how we're in the world, you know, we have to have a certain level of patience with, you know, let's say, you know, with our supervisor at work or our employees, you know. And so what happens with us as men, a lot of times, we only have so much threshold for that. All throughout the day, you know, your patience bucket is just getting depleted. You know what I'm saying? So by the time you get home, you know, you greet your family, what tended to happen, like historically, it's a short fuse. But the conversation between me and the brother is, why is that? Like, why are we having such a short fuse with the people that we say we love the most? And that's the part where it's like, man, you know what? That can't happen. We gotta change that, because if nothing else, we need to prioritize the things we say we love. Like, you know, you look at somebody's day. That's why I always go back to the daily process. You know, me personally, not saying I'm perfect by a long shot, but as soon as I open my eyes, I want to thank the Lord. I want very shortly after, I want to go spend some time with the Lord. I want to do some readings. I want to read, you know, the Bible, something spiritual, something motivational. Then I want to get my workout in. This is me just kind of getting myself prepared for the day. Then I want to spend some time with my family. After that, everything else is, okay, cool, I can go do some work. I've done the most important things with the most important people and entities in my life. And that's the thing that I think, you know, us as men, including myself, we have to constantly evaluate where we, as far as like where we need to be.
We were talking about a music video at one point, and it was "To Be a Man." I believe that's what the title of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you go out, right? You silly old men. We wake up and think the world is all right, but it's like, we have so many things that could be coming against us. As a father, you walk out, your kids, you gotta protect, you gotta provide, you gotta be the first line of defense. In every realm. And it's like, even if you don't have kids, it's like you are still you are looked at by society in a certain way. And you can't show certain things. You can't show, you can't be showing certain emotions. You gotta stand up in this. If someone says something to you, you gotta be able to, you know, buck up to them and everything. And we have all these things in our mind about how we should be, how we should react, who we should be in every certain situation. But it's like, it's just those moments where it's like, you know what? What's traditional, what's normal doesn't fit here, because there's growth that needs to happen, you know? And it's like, dude, like I feel like we talked about pride before. Pride for a guy, I feel like, is stronger than probably anybody else.
Yeah.
Because with us, it's like we all, that's like a natural default sometimes. I mean, some dudes are just scared. But like other times, you wanna stand up. You wanna be that guy who goes up against everybody. Forget it. Like I'm here for that. But it's like, sometimes it's a time where you got to actually just take a step back and like reflect on it. And I think during those moments, there's so much potential opportunity, because one thing that I know for a fact in my own life is I've learned a lot from going up and getting my head kicked in. When we've talked about like goal setting, and we had a conversation recently about demotivational speeches. I've always been the guy who's gonna still give it a shot, but like if we're on the track and I'm about to do the 400 meter hurdles, I'm gonna go full force. But then I'm gonna realize that you're gonna get tired at this right here. You're gonna hit, I'm gonna try hurdles because no one else wants to do it and it's scary and X, Y, and Z, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot and I'm gonna fall on my face. I've fallen on my face multiple times, but that process of, oh, okay, this hurts. Maybe I should do it differently next time. That was the moment that I needed so that I could be better at it.
Yeah.
teachable moments. That's what we're talking about. I mean, and I think, what you brought up and what Mike said, it kind of makes me reflect back to my childhood, right? So I think about my parents, and I think about, my mom, my parents are great parents, but no parents perfect because there's no instruction book for parents. So my mother was a fusser. She a fuss, What I found out very early on is that I fuss too, okay? All right? So I'm ranking myself based on what my mother did. Like, hey, I'm not like her. I don't fuss like she did. But the point though, when I'm dealing with my nieces and nephews, I had to catch myself because I'm coming to them just like she came to me. Yep. Okay? And it's not in a positive way. Okay, so they're a different generation. They like tuned out, and it's like they looking at me like, I don't want to talk to you no more. So there's no teachable moment there. They're not learning nothing. I can be giving them all the wisdom in the world, but because of how I'm approaching them, it's wrong. And it took a while, and my other sister had to tell me, because I was ready to, one niece, I was ready to just be done, But she's like, Rodney, you can't do that. You just got to pray for her. You just gotta, she ain't saying you just, fall into her trap or nothing like that, but you need to be present in a positive way. Now, fast forward, I just had a conversation with her about a few months ago. She talking about God. Yeah. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, is this, I ain't gonna call it now, is this so-and-so? I'm like, this is the same one that I remember. And so, and we had a good conversation. So I learned, but I'm still learning. And I was like, if I would have stayed that same way, there wouldn't be, that conversation wouldn't have happened.
Man, that's so powerful right there. Because as you're talking about it, I'm like actively reflecting because I tend to have a little bit of the same, isms where I'm like, hey, don't say, and I had to catch myself. I'm like, we got to go back and we got to remember how it felt. But see, I was just reflecting on something I heard. It was Inky Johnson's podcast, and they were talking about our conditioning. Conditioning is so powerful where we were conditioned to speak English. Someone living in Africa or born in Africa, they're conditioned to speak their native tongue. There's babies that can be conditioned to learn 5 languages at one time.
Wow.
And it's because your environment is so critical. And that's where we were having a conversation based on, me in real time thinking about my journey as, a father. And then that's another thing too. The first kid is like the guinea pig kind of. You trying to figure everything out because everything was just theory until now. And every moment is another moment where when we was having that conversation in the kitchen area, what moments can we not afford to miss? And that's the biggest thing that I found myself reflecting on, like with the kids specifically, where, like we're saying, am I coming so much trying to, in my mind is love because it's discipline. I'm trying to get you disciplined. I'm trying to get you prepared for the world. But if every time you're coming to talk to me, I'm kind of like throwing some discipline at you and you shut down on me, I've defeated the purpose. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying me, but this, this is something that all of us have to reflect in. And like you said, your nieces, your nephews, different kids you mentor, this is applicable to anybody. You have to create that fertile ground. Right? If it's rocky, every time they come, it's kind of jagged. Who wants to constantly be,
around that?
Yeah, because you're like, dang, you never talking to me. You don't bring nothing to me. Like, every time I bring something to you, it feels like I'm walking through a landmine. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, as I'm saying it, I'm like, man, because I'm reflecting on it where, by no shape or means am I saying like I've perfected this. That's the thing. That's when we go back to that daily process. Like you have to, but the fact that I know this is a challenge with myself, I'm like, you know what? It's just something that we have to be aware of.
Yeah.
With that, I'm always thinking about like, you talked about conditioning. People, I think the saying is like you end up just becoming your parents anyway. Like most dudes like we all say and I've heard this so many times. A lot of people will say, "Oh, my dad used to do this," or "My mom used to do this, and when I have kids, I ain't gonna do that, or I'm gonna do something totally different. I'm gonna do this instead." And time after time after time after time after time after time, you end up saying, you're just a watered down version of that same exact thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's only when someone actually not just says, "I'm not gonna do that because my parents did this to me." When it's the time where someone says, "You know what, I'm gonna actually reflect on the roots of this thing. I'm gonna dig this thing up. Where does it come from? How did they end up like this? Mm-hmm. Oh, wait. So this lady, her mom was an orphan, so she didn't have a lot of emotions because she was never loved on. And so therefore she had a daughter who now also doesn't have the same materials because she never gave it to her, but she gave him somewhat. And then she's now reacting like this to her, and now they got conflict, and she's trying to figure out why they got issues here. And it's like, you'd backtrack all these things, and then like, cause I'm saying this because I know it has happened in my life. And it's like, it's a point where it's like, I can't judge you as the parent on these particular things, and I can't say like, I can't act like you were supposed to be perfect. Mm-hmm. I understand what you come from now. Mm-hmm. So now I'm actively choosing to now do something differently, but also with an awareness that, you know what, I know where I come from. I know that I come from you. So I'm not, disrespecting who you are, but I'm going to do my best to fight against the things that are negative that I cannot continue on.
It's a generational aspect to this too. Mm-hmm. So like even like what you were saying about your parents, I think we all, we have great parents, amazing people, but we all have areas of improvement. No matter how amazing anyone is, it's always areas for improvement, right? And me just thinking generationally, we often talk about this in our Men 2.0 where we're kind of like the first generation that is, we were raised a certain way where a lot of men just didn't talk about feelings, emotions. Hey, man, wipe them tears off. Let you a little girl or something like, that's just the way it was. Yeah, and you felt like you had to mask all of this and I can't feel anything. So what does that create? It creates a machine-like mentality. So now you have little fragile kids and you're handling them like a machine, and that's the part where it's very challenging, but at the same time, it's so important, and it's not fair. It's like, now, don't get it twisted. Like, I'm like, sometimes you feel, man, dang, like we almost gotta be perfect. And we didn't have that example. No, you didn't. And I think, Martell and both of you guys hitting on stuff like, we want to be a better version of our parents. I mean, that's kind of where you was going. And we want to kind of, I won't say fix. We want to fix in ourselves those things or improve those things that we can. Because at the time, I guess one thing talking about the generations, at that time, the generation, to your point, the kids, we were different. We were wired different. Yes. So in some cases, it motivated us to do better. You know what I mean? And I think now, because to your point, we're open to the fact that, hey, we got emotions and feelings that we need to deal with, because if we don't, like you talked about bringing it all home, that patience bucket, you gonna let it out somewhere and somehow, and normally you let it out in the environment where you feel the most comfortable at. And sadly, it's toward the people who love you the most are the ones that get it, because you feel, you kind of like, I don't know what the reason is, but the consequences are different. Yeah. So we that teaching moment piece, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because we all got to keep reflecting in the mirror, like, where can we improve? And then, talking about with kids, it's like, there's no book, but, Mike, you talk about it all the time. I think you and Lauren, y'all are great parents. Y'all do a great job.
And I know you're going to sit and say, well, hey, we got a lot. Yeah, you do. But that's why you're doing a great job, because you're trying to figure out, how can I reach them without, you need to do what I tell you to do the way I tell you to do it, versus you trying to understand who they are.
To break a cycle, I think it takes, one, being aware that there is a cycle in the first place. And then two, I think you gotta deconstruct the belief systems that cause the behavior. Cause like what you just laid out, you were talking about, okay, there was a certain generation who believed that as a man, you need to act this way. Wipe them tears off. Stop acting like a girl. That's a belief right there.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, now that belief caused him to react in this particular way to his son crying. Now the kid is paying attention to how his father reacted. So the father, okay, so so crying is when you act like, only people who cry are people who acting like girls. So therefore, I shouldn't be crying. I'm not crying no more. That's a girl thing. I ain't like that. I ain't a girl. I'm a boy. Yeah. And then, so now this dude grows up, and then now he cannot connect with his wife because his wife cries. His son cries.
And he suppresses his emotions.
He's been suppressing his emotions his whole life.
And look, that's me. I mean, as you sit there and talk about it, I learning how to express myself. And my wife would tell you, she has shown me how to show love. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't know how to do that. And I'm still learning. Don't get me wrong, I ain't got it down pat, y'all. But the point though is that even emotion, having those conversations, being in touch with what I'm feeling, is new to me still, and I had to work to do that. So what you bring it up is like, that programming is so ingrained in us, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like you just wake up tomorrow, even though we realize it's there, it don't go away like overnight. You gotta work to chisel that rock.
Definitely.
So it gets really, really deep. Like when we really study this and, like you said, trace it back generation. All right, the previous generation, what was going on in there? Man, you have so many like layers. On all of our family, we got family, things that it is what it is. But as a culture, the biggest thing we always have to keep them, and this is why it's important to have these conversations, because a lot of this stuff is just not being talked about in schools. A lot of kids don't realize like how, our lineage was completely disrupted by slavery. Yeah. If you think about some of the things that were taking place during slavery, men had to literally put their feelings aside because it was life or death.
Yeah.
You had to literally see your wife being taken from a slave master, and they doing whatever they want with her and then bringing her back. And then you have to just try to find a way to just keep going on without, doing something just completely detrimental to somebody that's going to cause a lot of ramifications. We talked about, we went and watched the Bass Reeves series, which is a phenomenal series. Like anybody listening, go check that out. But it was a good illustration just showing the type of person that you had to be, even for the women having to endure this stuff. Yeah. But a lot of the reasons why we, as men, we put our emotions to the side is it comes from that time period. You know what I'm saying? We had to, and that gets passed down generationally, even post-slavery. You say, well, slavery, that's, Jim Crow era. We're talking about the 50s, 60s, 70s, depending on where you live. Could still be today. Like, depending on if you down south or something, it's still a certain way that people conduct themselves, Yeah. And so we're not saying that it's not our fault that we're here. However, it is our responsibility to make the corrections. It's not our fault. Okay. But it is our responsibility as men and women. It could be some women watching this too. Just we have to dive into, okay, this is where we at. Yep. How do we correct this thing? It's like if you're on a plane and you see a malfunction, we got to get this thing corrected. We can't just go down with the plane.
No. You got to do everything you can to fix it. I mean, as you was talking, we mentor at a school, Mentor Point of View. Mike, we go there and it was a young man, exactly what we're talking about. he had this anger and rage, right? So we started talking to him. And what he was saying, he had lost his grandmother. And he hasn't been able to express his emotions on losing his grandmother. This is a fifth grader, okay? And his dad told him, boy, you don't cry. And so we had a moment with him there. I mean, I was about to start crying. I had recently lost my mom at the time, so I was just telling him, I said, look, you got to let your emotion out.
Yeah.
And he said, but I don't have nobody to go to because his dad don't understand. His mind won't let him do it. So we was like, I said, look, you know what? You got a counselor here. You got us right here, man. Let it out. And he cried, But the point though is that conditioning, man, so you got a father who's been programmed like we talked about, like we all been in that respect. You got a mother, because it's women too, that's been programmed the same way. You a boy, so this is what you're supposed to do. And you got a young man who got this bottled up and he letting it out in anger.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
We can't, for the sake of everybody who we interact with for our lives and for everybody who comes from us, it is irresponsible to be ignorant of your own wiring, what makes you you, the triggers that you have. Because if you do, then we just walk blindly into the next situation with somebody else's beliefs that came from a whole different generation that was dealing with some stuff. That, homie, the dude who was a slave, there were only a few things that he could do that wouldn't get him killed. And so, of course, he's gonna be molded in a certain way because he had to adapt to his situation. Right. It's the same thing. We can just go back a generation, 2 generations ago, where you might have a dad who's like super hard, and his father didn't have no money. He had to figure everything out for himself. He had no opportunity to have emotions. That wasn't a thing. If he had emotions, he was gonna die. He was gonna get shot in the street. He was gonna get killed, hung, whatever. And so he was molded in a certain way, and that was reflected onto the son, and the son takes that on to his son, and that son takes that on to his son. But somebody. If it's something negative, somebody's got to stop the cycle.
Got to break the cycle, man. And I know, and I know we might have to do a part 2 to this one, but because we're getting to that time. And if you guys you can detect that this is, it's a heavy subject for us too, but it's one like Martell just laid out. We gotta get to the root. We can't ignore this. You know what I'm saying? We gotta understand what wires us the way we are, and we gotta work to reprogram that wiring. So as we kind of get to the end, how we, just trying to put a cap on where we are in this part of the conversation, what some of the closing comments you guys want to make as it relates to this?
So for me, just touching on what you're saying, I think this will be a good, I'm kind of having a real life, but this would be a good panel discussion where we do include some women and we just had this conversation. Because the thing is, going to your point, one of my key things is there's no silver bullet to solve this. It's not like, all right, you do this and then we're done. This is a constant evolving entity. It's like a daily regimen, and you're only going to improve if you have the right information, you're in tune spiritually, and you have wise counsel. You got to be in an environment where you have people that are going to, be willing to have some tough and challenging conversations with you versus someone's, oh yeah, you just do this and that's it. Because you go to the wrong people, man, you get the wrong solution, it'll make the situation worse. So I think this is something that we gotta be intentional about having.
I'm with that. I agree with you.
It's funny that you say that. Like, as we wrap up here, I was just thinking about, I'm glad that you said the spiritual aspect. I think on the solution side, something that has to be mentioned is there was a time, and I won't go into the story, but I was separated from my father, and we ended up in a completely different state for some very important years of life. Okay. And so during those developmental years, the things that a father would typically be supposed to be installing into their son at this point in time, the distance was too far, that we just weren't in that, we didn't have that kind of proximity. But what I know is that the Holy Spirit fills the gap.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it is, whatever you're missing, whatever, the wiring is, whatever background you come from, sometimes just like that kid who's like, I don't have anybody to turn to. Like, I don't have anywhere to go. The Holy Spirit definitely helps out in all of those areas in life. And I guarantee if you don't have the answer, the Holy Spirit has the answer. And if you don't even have somebody, the Holy Spirit can be that for you.
Yeah, real talk. Oh, that's real talk.
But thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. Definitely, if you really digested this, put in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts were. Let us know if, maybe we can connect to something. I mean, Men 2.0. Go ahead.
Men 2.0, second Saturday every month at the Freedom Center in Southfield. That's 28202 Franklin Road, Southfield, Michigan. We kick off at 10 a.m. We go to 12 p.m. the second Saturday every month. Come check us out if you're in Southfield. I'm sorry, if you're in the Detroit metro area.
Mm-hmm.
So for this one, I wanna plug one of the local businesses that is just an awesome business. It's a coffee shop called Cafe Noir, and it's a Black-owned real estate developer that's a good friend of mine. And I was there recently. We were just having conversations. A lot of the things that we're talking about as an entity, it's a guy, he's deeply rooted in, this type of continuous improvement also. So check out Cafe Noir. It's on the north end in Detroit. And the address is 9405 John R., Detroit, Michigan.
Boom. And I'm going to do the same thing. There's a dude who's been doing some amazing stuff in the community. You can definitely tell that he is very intentional about how he lives his life and how he affects the people around him. He's an incredible father. And you can see that he's not just one who's going to just ignore, the reality of things. He's going to take it head on, and he's going to do what he can do to improve the situation. And he's connected to God, so he's going to have the answer. This dude, he built a brand, and it's got a clothing line right now. I'm actually wearing one of their items, Rebuilding Detroit. He does real estate, obviously, Rebuilding Detroit, one house at a time. And I definitely think you should support, because it's not a shirt because he's just trying to make money off of everybody. It's a movement. It's a mindset. It's a lifestyle kind of thing. So when you wear this, it's not just wearing it because, I just like the look of it. It means something. This Men 2.0 is about something. Like, we're not just here just to do general stuff, just to be busy. No, this is a meaningful work. So to get connected to it, you want to go ahead and give the plug for that? I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's who we're talking about. No, he's who we're talking about.
Yeah. No, it's come check us out on Instagram at Detroit Investor _WCI. So no, I appreciate that, man. I receive that. Usually I'm like, well, I receive it, man. I appreciate it, but definitely come check us out, be a part of the movement. And the movement is what it is. We're all a part of this living organism, and we got to grow together.
Yeah, amen.
Definitely. So thank you for tuning in, and go ahead and subscribe if you have not already. I know we didn't say that in the beginning because we were jumping straight into it. So definitely subscribe now, like the episode, share, comment, all that YouTube stuff. And we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.